Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a young soldier, scarcely older than many university graduates, standing not in the comfort of an office or the spotlight of a stage, but in the dust and uncertainty of a battlefield. Imagine him carrying not only the weight of his uniform, but also the heavier burden of an entire nation's expectations. This is not the beginning of a novel or a film. It is the real story of a man whose rise from humble origins to the highest office in his country has startled the world and inspired millions across a continent searching for leadership, dignity, and change. The story of his life is, at its core, the story of resilience. Born into an environment where opportunity was scarce and challenges were abundant, he did not have the luxury of ease. His childhood was shaped by the daily struggles that so many in his homeland endure. Limited resources, fragile infrastructures, and the constant shadow of instability. Yet within those conditions, he developed qualities that would later define his leadership: discipline, courage, and an unwavering sense of responsibility toward his people. From a young age, he pursued a path of service, entering the military not for prestige or personal gain, but with the conviction that it was one of the few institutions capable of defending the fragile hopes of his community. His military career was marked by dedication, rigorous training, and a commitment to mastering the skills of both strategy and leadership. Unlike many who wear the uniform, he quickly distinguished himself not only by his discipline in the field, but by his capacity to inspire those around him. Fellow officers described him as principled, steadfast, and remarkably focused for his age. It was within the military that he began to see more clearly the depth of his country's challenges. He witnessed villages emptied by violence, families torn apart by conflict, and communities left vulnerable by corruption and neglect. He also saw how decisions made in distant offices often failed to address the realities on the ground. These experiences planted in him the conviction that change could not wait for others to deliver it. It had to be demanded and shaped by those who understood the urgency of the people's suffering. When he rose to national prominence, it was not through traditional politics or long campaigns, but through a decisive moment of history that thrust him forward. In the face of insecurity, disillusionment, and a leadership vacuum, he stepped forward with a clarity that resonated with citizens far beyond his own generation. For many, his ascent represented not only a change in leadership, but a profound break with the cycles of complacency and dependency that had long defined the country's political landscape. What makes his journey so remarkable is not merely the speed with which he assumed power, but the vision he articulated in its aftermath. He spoke of sovereignty not as a slogan, but as a principle. He called for dignity not as an abstract ideal, but as a necessity for survival. He emphasized unity, urging citizens to look beyond ethnic, regional, or religious divisions, and to see themselves as part of a shared destiny. His words carried weight because they were backed by the authenticity of his own journey, from the dusty paths of his childhood to the corridors of authority. Yet, as with all leaders who emerge in times of crisis, his path has not been free of criticism or controversy. Questions have been raised about the means through which he rose to power, about the risks of militarization of politics, and about the balance between urgent action and democratic stability. These are legitimate concerns that echo far beyond his own nation, for they touch upon the broader debate about governance and sovereignty across an entire continent. But to focus solely on these debates is to miss the deeper significance of his story. He represents a generation unafraid to challenge the status quo, unafraid to speak of independence in an age when dependency has often been normalized, and unafraid to demand accountability not just from others, but from themselves. What also sets his journey apart is his ability to connect with ordinary people. Unlike leaders who distance themselves behind guarded palaces and endless protocol, he has often chosen to appear among citizens in times of need. This accessibility, rare among heads of state, has strengthened his bond with a population hungry for authenticity. For them, he is not a distant ruler, but a visible symbol of defiance, renewal, and possibility. Internationally, his emergence has provoked both fascination and unease. Some observers view him as a bold leader, embodying the aspirations of African youth, while others fear instability and unpredictability. He has challenged old alliances, questioned long-standing dependencies, and sought new partnerships that reflect a changing geopolitical reality. Whether admired or criticized, one cannot deny that his voice has forced the world to pay attention to a country and a region often marginalized in global conversations. As we reflect on his journey, it is essential to recognize that his story is still being written. He stands at the intersection of extraordinary opportunity and immense challenge. He leads a nation striving to break free from cycles of insecurity, poverty, and external influence, while also striving to uphold unity and justice within its borders. His success or failure will not be measured only by political milestones, but by the tangible improvements in the lives of his people: security in their homes, food on their tables, education for their children, and dignity in their daily existence. His life reminds us of a larger truth. Leadership is not defined by age, background, or conventional pathways. It is defined by the ability to rise when circumstances demand it, to shoulder responsibility when others shrink from it, and to dream of a future that transcends present struggles. His story resonates so deeply because it reflects the aspirations of millions across a continent where youth form the overwhelming majority, yet too often remain excluded from real power. Ladies and gentlemen, the story of this young leader is not just the chronicle of an individual's rise. It is a mirror held up to an entire generation, a generation that refuses to be silenced, that refuses to inherit only the burdens of the past, and that dares to believe in a different future. His journey teaches us that hope can emerge from the harshest realities, that courage can come from the most unlikely places, and that sometimes history turns not on the decisions of the powerful, but on the conviction of the young. May his path remind us all that leadership, at its best, is not about titles or positions, but about service, sacrifice, and the determination to leave behind a legacy of dignity and renewal. Thank you.